That's it there, it's a Dewalt DCM575N, and I'm going to do an unboxing. I thought I might as well do it out in the field. Got a couple of 54 volt batteries, so be interested to see how long they last, and we'll put it through its paces as well. So I'll pop it into the back of the car. Well, here we are. We're in the woodland area I was talking about. It's actually it's a friend of mine's garden where the big trees come down. It's like a wooded area with a beck running through it. The beck at the moment is full of all of the big logs that came off. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to unbox this beauty and then we'll put it through its paces. I've got my safety equipment on. I've got my chainsaw trousers on. I've got my chainsaw boots on. I've got my gloves there, and I've got my good old helmet here with the defenders as well. Well, I opened the box and I cut all the tape off, and inside I realised that everything was really nice and securely packaged. So I took the saw out, and first of all there's the instruction manual, which I read the instruction manual. Excellent attention to safety in the instruction manual, and took the packaging off. It was fairly secure in the box. In fact, it took a little bit to get the packaging off, so it wasn't going to go anywhere in transit. And then what I did was just have a look around the saw, familiarise myself with everything that was in the manual, and you can see the point there where you've got the chain tension, and you've also able to take the actual cover off to give it a good clean out. And the chain itself was actually spot on. It was about 10mm movement in it, so it was ideal. That's the battery socket. So I went off and I got myself the 54 volt battery. It just slotted in nicely, clicked in easily. Press it, the button in, clicks out nice and easy as well. And then what I needed to do was just have a look at the blade there. I was interested to see that, and then I realised that I needed to put some chain oil in, and so I filled it up with chain oil and checked the gauge, make sure it was correct, and then we're ready to start and do some cutting. First impressions is very well made. It's nice and light as well. That's where the oil gauge is there. And filled it with the chain oil, made sure it was right up to the right mark on the actual oil itself. And then I started to try and start it. It wouldn't start. And then all of a sudden it started, because we disengaged the safety catch, which is another feature that's in there. All chainsaws have this feature in any case, but nothing can happen until you pull the lever forward. So I started off with a log, and I cut through this piece of log, and it would be around about the 14-inch diameter, about 350mm diameter. And as you can see, this is real-time cutting. This isn't speeded up or anything like that. It's cut in real time, and the saw just glided through it beautifully. Then what I decided was that was a nice size to be able to create some calabash bowls out of the crotches. So I thought I would just cut a nice slice of that off to be able to create the templates for the calabash bowls when I cut the crotches up. So there we go, cutting through, nice and easy again, and you'll see the slice come off. It was about 30mm, an inch and a quarter thick that I took off there, but it glided through across the grain, no problem at all. I then took a smaller log. This was about 10-inch diameter, 250mm, and I cut through that, and again you can see it glides through it nice and easy. And I cut it to about 10 inches long, because this is what I was going to use to make a bowl blank with, and there was a couple of pieces there as well. So I just put the other one back onto the log and made sure it was balanced nice and securely, so that I could cut another slice off about the same length as the diameter. As I say, it was about 10 inches, 250mm. So I'll get it nice and secure, and then cut through it. Again, you can't get the blade to rotate until you press the lever down and you squeeze the trigger in. It's another safety feature that I must admit is a great idea. So there we are, we've cut another nice slice off the log itself. So now what I want to do is get the crotch and position it so as it's nice and safe over those 3 logs. Being out in the field, you have to use whatever you've got, but you've got to make sure that it's secure. So I've got the crotch nice and secure there, and what I want to do is cut it so that you've got 3 of the branch areas coming out when you turn the calabash bowl, and those branch areas will be in the center of the side of the bowl and will look really decorative. So first of all, I'm cutting across on an angle to remove the bulk of the wood to get it into a bowl blank shape. But as you can see, I'm just resting the blade on the material. I'm not putting any pressure on there whatsoever. I'm letting the blade glide through the material and cut it at its own pace, and you can see the amount of time it's taken. It's seconds actually to cut through the slice of material off the end there. You can see beautiful grain in that ash, lovely olive centre. Cut the angle off on the opposite side. And there we go, slicing it through. And you can see that I've got myself a good stance. I've got my chainsaw trousers on, and I've got my chainsaw boots, chainsaw gloves, and my helmet with the mesh visor and the defenders. Even though the saw is very quiet, I still wear the ear defenders. So there we are, cutting off another slice. Again, this is running across the grain on the end grain at about 45 degrees. Cut a piece off the other side. And then what I'll do is I'll actually cut a piece with the grain, along the grain. Now this is where you usually test the chainsaw out. You can see those streamers flying out of the top of the chainsaw forwards. But you can see how it's just slicing through that material just like butter. I'm led to believe that it's an Oregon chain and it's an Oregon bar. And I am actually wanting to do some chainsaw carving, so I'm going to invest in a carving bar and try it on the Dewalt cordless. So there we are, that's the bulk of the material cut off, and one more cut and then I'll have it into the basic shape of the round for the calabash bowl throughout the crotch. So that's the crotch cut. Now here's an example of cutting down a piece of material with the grain, across the grain. As I said before, this is the test of a saw when you're cutting across the grain. What people who haven't had the chainsaw training, I often see it, is that they'll try and cut down the log from the top of the log from the cross grain, but you have to cut with the side grain in order to cut it nice and safe. Now this piece of wood is actually longer than the bar, so what I'm doing, I'm cutting down at about 30 degrees to the depth of the bar on one side, and then what I'll do is I'll go around the opposite side and cut from the opposite side. So you're cutting in more or less in triangles as you take it down through the wood, so that the nose of the saw is always exposed rather than inside the wood. Go around to the other side and do the same on the other side. And again, this is real time cutting. So I just wanted to show the saw performing. It's just the weight of the blade. I'm not pushing hard at all. And I cut all the way through that piece of wood, no problem at all. Lovely piece of olive ash, and it was 16 inches wide. So it was using the bar at its extreme. So it was just an example to let you see. Again, cutting with the grain here instead of across the grain. What I'm doing is I'm actually going to start and cut some billets. And what billets are, they are what you could use for your chair legs or your stool legs. In my case, what these billets are going to be for are for actually making spoons, because I do a lot of train for the table, and I'll make some wooden spoons out of these billets. So I want to cut them down to around about 50 millimeters, 2 inches square, to put onto the lathe, but I'm preparing them out in the field so that all of the shavings are left in the field. And the shavings that are here actually are going to be all gathered up because the people who own the land have ducks, and they will use the shavings for the ducks in the duck shed. Unfortunately, because of the bird flu, the ducks are locked away at the moment, so changing the shavings regularly is a must, really. So there we are, we're cutting the billets about 50mm wide, 2 inches wide, and they will be used to create spoons, but they could be used for chair legs, they could be used for stool stretches, chair stretches, whatever. And ash is very, very good for turning grain and making into greenwood furniture. So turn it on its side, and again what I'll do is I'll just cut those billets so that they're near enough the square section, and then put them in the barrow ready to transfer up and into the trailer. Safety catch forward, and then the blade will start to rotate, but you can see those streamers flying out the front of the blade, and the saw is just, well, it's performing lovely. Very, very pleased with my investment. I did have a great big chainsaw which was a Stihl 064, and the 064, I mean, it served me well, but the thing was, I'm getting a bit older now and I just found it too heavy to work with. But a good friend of mine who is, he does quite a lot of garden work, and he's done a lot of garden work for us in the past. He's now got it, and it'll go on to cut more wood, but this for me is a lot easier to handle, especially for the size of the sections that I'm using. So there we are, we've got most of the billets cut there. I'm just going to trim up the other 3 into the square section. I want about 10 in total, because I'm preparing all of this wood for the Meet the Woodturner Live symposium, which is going to be on at the end of March. And I wanted this wood, this is February, the tree was blown down in February 2022, and the winds were horrendous, so sadly the tree was blown down, but we're putting it all to good use with turning it into material for turning and also material for burning. Ash always burns well on the fire as well. But you can see the amount of streamers that are made, and they'll all gather up and make smashing bedding for the ducks. So there we are, billets cut and ready to transfer up into the trailer. Now we're back to the crotch, and again, as I said before, it's always good to see how it handles it on the side grain rather than the cross grain. So here we go, I'm going to cut through the actual side grain. Again, real time cutting. If we look at the time lapse on the video, you'll be able to see how long it takes to cut through that piece of wood, and that piece of wood is probably about 16 inches, 400mm diameter. And by the time I get through the material and I cut it off so it's got a flat bottom on the ball blank, you're probably looking at just over a minute, something like that, and which is fantastic for a cordless chainsaw. I've got to admit, I didn't expect it being as good as what it is. I've got an electric chainsaw which is quite good, but not as good as the cordless. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take some of the bowl blanks, or the rounds, the log rounds. These were about 10 inches diameter, 250mm, and I'm going to cut them up so that we can use them for bowl blanks for utilitarian bowls to eat soup and stew and this type of thing. So there we are, I've got a bit of that's a slice of the log that came off there. I'm just going to trim that up and cut it into the square. I'm still on the first battery, by the way, and I've probably cut around about 2/3 of what I'll have in the trailer at the end when you see the material that's in the trailer at the end. So I thought I'd do a distance shot just to let you see the surrounding area as well. It was a lovely day, but the problem was it was really, really windy, which is one of the reasons why I like to overdub, and also you can always put a little bit more information in. So we're just getting to the stage now where the first battery's out of charge, So I pop that on charge, and then I put the second battery in. But what I've decided now is, you've seen it working in normal motion, normal speed. So now what I've done is I've multiplied the speed by 4, so as we can quickly cut through the material until we get to one of the big ball blanks at the end. And I want to show you how to prepare the ball blank from a log into a side grain blank ready to go onto the lathe. These are nice square size sections that are about 4 inches square or 100 millimeters square. I'm going to turn them into goblets or chalices for wine or ale. And I know Graham, the person who actually owns the garden where I've been cutting the material, he likes a real ale, so I'm going to make him a nice ale tankard, and I'm going to make his wife a nice wine goblet as well. So there we are, cutting the side grain. That's the 10-inch logs that I cut. Now I want to turn them into bowls, so what I've done is I've sighted it through, and I'll just cut a piece off each side to give a flat, so that I could put it onto the bandsaw if I wish to cut it either round or into the hexagon on the bandsaw, straight down through the middle. And there we've got a pair of matching bowl blanks. What I am doing is putting them in together, so that if I want sister bowls, I can have sister bowls. Again, same with the next blank, and this is 4 times the speed, so you can see how quick it's actually working, even speeded up. And then the last 10-inch blank, 250 millimeters. And this is the second battery. The first battery is now on charge. And then this one will be around about 14 inches in diameter, which is the 350 millimeter diameter. I've got a couple of wedges on each side just to hold it in position. I'm going to take a slice off the end there, just to true the end up. And you can see this is back into real time, so you can see how long it's actually taken to cut. And it is only a matter of seconds just to be able to cut through the end grain and get it nicely trued up. I haven't actually done any sharpening on the blade yet either, so the longevity of the blade seems to be very, very good. I've been fortunate I haven't caught any barbed wire or any nails or any gunshot in the material. That's usually the thing that will blunt the blade first. So then I've cut it to length, I've trimmed up the end. I'm actually inspecting it now to see where the pith is, because what I want to do is actually cut it right down the middle through the pith line. So 2 flats on each side, so that I can put it onto the bandsaw if I wish to do so. And there you can see the stream is flying forward. And then same on the other side, and then we shall slice it through the middle, and we'll be left with 2 sister blanks or 2 sister bowls, so that we can turn a pair of matching salad bowls. And I intend turning a pair of matching salad bowls for Graham's friend Colin, who came along with a teleporter and lifted some of the massive pieces of wood out, and the lady who has the field next to the garden, who's allowed us to store the wood in there until we can use it, which is absolutely brilliant. It means that the tree hasn't fell in vain, it's all going to get used for one thing or another. So there you are, you can see I've sliced through that nice and easily, and all of a sudden it'll just fall apart, pop it into the wheelbarrow, and we can get it into the trailer. Second battery, still got a 1/3 charge left in it.
Well, there we are, gears all packed up. That Dewalt is superb, highly recommended. Champion, because my old steel, I've given it to my friend because it was too big for me to handle. It was an 064 with a 24-inch bar, and I just couldn't handle it anymore, so smaller ones are much better for me now. Anyway, there we are, there's the fruits of the labour. They're all prepared, ready to go onto the lathe. But just look at that ripple, isn't it gorgeous? There we go, so a nice harvest today. I'll show you where I've been working again. There we are, that's it. That was the logs that fell last night with the surgeon. Burnt a lot of the brush off today, got a lot cut. And that big pile there in the middle, this one here, they're all crutches, and I'm going to turn them into calabashes, inspired by the Hawaiian king of calabash himself, Emiliano.